Hey everybody, I'd like to invite you to our Sunday morning 9 a.m. lecture presented by Mondo Gonzalez. He's taken us super deep. Now this is John Piper's perfectly correct biblical reformed answer in regards to genocide found in the Old Testament. But we're going to show you an example of how Mondo Gonzalez represents the theological high ground behind what we see in the Old Testament.
Why was it right for God to slaughter women and children in the Old Testament? How can that ever be right?
It's right for God to slaughter women and children anytime He pleases. Life is in God's hand. God decides when your last heartbeat will be, and whether it ends through cancer or whether it ends through a bullet wound. God governs. So God is God. God rules and governs everything. And everything He does is just and right and good. God owes us nothing.
Don't misunderstand me. That is totally a biblically correct answer that John Piper gives. But let's take a look a little deeper at the theological high ground that Mondo Gonzalez brings forth at our 9 o'clock lecture.
In 1848, President Abraham Lincoln visited the Niagara Falls, and he was so impressed by the beauty of this natural wonder that he wrote down some notes, including the following. When Columbus first sought this continent, when Christ suffered on the cross, when Moses led Israel through the Red Sea, nay, even when Adam first came from the hand of his Maker, then as now, Niagara was roaring here. The eyes of that species of extinct giants, whose bones fill the mounds of America, have gazed on Niagara as ours do now.
Before they start wandering, they're getting ready to go, that they send the spies out to the land. They're hanging out down here in, Kadesh Barnea in the desert, and Israel's up here. So they send the spies up, and the spies come back with the bad report. What was the bad report that the 10? Giants. Well, why would Moses include that? In fact, in Numbers 13:33, it's very specific. I'll get right on here, but if we want, we can put Numbers 13:32 and 33. But the reason I bring this up is because the word Nephilim appears in Numbers 13. The only other place it appears is back over here in Genesis 6. You think Moses wants us to make a connection? Again, nothing is accidental. Moses is saying, he's writing down the report of the spies, and the spies come back and go, hey man, we can't do it. The land is filled with the sons of Anak, the Anakim, even the Nephilim are there. Well, you go, well, who are the Nephilim? The Nephilim, the only other place it appears is in Genesis 6, when these sons of God, Elohim, these rebellious, wicked angels, if you want to call that term, it's pretty inaccurate, or non-specific or precise. They came down and mated with women, produced these Nephilim, these hybrid giants, to cause trouble. Well, lo and behold, there they are back in the land. So something happened again, and they're in God's land. Because remember, if you wanted another one, you can put Genesis 15 here. In Genesis 15, God is talking to Abraham, and He says, Abraham, you see all this land? I'm going to give it to you and your descendants. God let the cat out of the bag. Okay? I'm going to give this to you and your descendants, but it's not going to happen for about 400 years. Until the iniquity of the Amorites is complete, right? You can read that. Well, Satan, it's like, oh, this land is special. I see that all the nations have been given over to these sons of God, which these angelic, you want to say, beings. God is now choosing this one guy, Abraham. Well, I got to mess that up too, because I messed it up here, and now God is getting more specific. I got to mess this up. So somehow it happens that now think about this. Satan fills the land with these hybrid giants in order to interrupt what? The repossession of the land. Right? The conquest. So, they come back, they say, no, we can't do it. Then they end up wandering in the wilderness for 38 years, right? In Deuteronomy 2, as if we were to have, okay, let's just do this. Okay, Egypt is here, and this is Israel, all right? And they're hanging out down here. And then this is the Jordan River, etc. Well, you have X and B. I'll just put A, B, C, D. And then up here, very, very important, that is a mountain. That's called Mount Hermon, all right? So, Israel. When they start, they're down here, they go to spy out the land. All of a sudden, over the last 40 years, it's become filled with these giant offspring. These hybrid beings, okay? Because Satan's trying to interrupt all that God wants to do, because this is God's holy land. It's called the glorious land of the book of Daniel. This is where God's going to put his holy name. This is obviously where the crucifixion is going to happen. This is the seed of redemption. All of salvation history, right? In Deuteronomy 2, if you read this, it's fascinating, because as they're traipsing along, God brings them, not directly, he brings them around. And Moses is saying, hey, the Zamim, the Emim, all these Eames beings, these tribes are living in the land. He goes, well, don't worry about going here, because Esau and his descendants already wiped out that group of giants. Oh, don't worry about here. Edom already wiped out that group of giants. He said, but as you come up, there's Og is here, there's another one, the Heshbon is over here. He says, and then this is the big one, the land of Bashan, which is the land of giants, just on the eastern side of Israel, which is not modern-day Syria, Golan Heights. Mount Hermon is right there, and we'll talk about that connection later. As they're coming around, what God does is he systematically destroys all of these Nephilim tribes. See, it's interesting. One of the things that the Bible is accused often of genocide.
Take God in the Old Testament. He is Yahweh or Jehovah. Now, if you read the Bible in a dispassionate way, in a view of what is this actually saying, what you see is that the guy is a genocidal maniac.
Because God says, I don't want you to leave anything breathing. Right? Remember that? That wasn't to everybody. See, we just think, oh, God killed that wasn't. You know who he was killing off? He was killing off every one of these hybrid giant clans. Because they were spawned by these rebellious Elohim. God said, I can't have that in the land at all. I want you to kill just very specific tribes. And they killed this tribe, they killed that tribe, killed this tribe. And then, if you look in Joshua 11, as an example, after the conquest is over, it says, Joshua's writing now, and he says, well, we did what God told us to. We made conquest of the land, and now we're resting. And you know what? All the Anakim and the Nephilim are gone, except the ones that ran away over to Gaza. But it's interesting that he makes the comment that what God has told us to accomplish has been accomplished, and he defines it by the Nephilim or the Anakim or the giant tribes. See, we think, you just read it, well, what does that really mean? It goes back to what these rebellious angels started here. All of Deuteronomy 2 and 3 is giving the outline of how that destruction took place. So when they come up, remember Og's bed was like 13 feet long, and this was right here in the city, the place of Bashan. That was Nephilim or Anakim or Giant Central. And God wiped them all out. He said, I'm going to overcome these spawn beings. But also Yahweh was showing his power over all these rebellious Elohim and their children. Okay? You got to think of the meta-narrative here in that regard. Okay? So they come in, they wipe them all out. Israel actually gets this as part of Reuben and Manasseh. And, okay, so they're over there. And over here along is Gaza and some of the Philistine tribes. Well, let's just go down in prophetic history. 1 Samuel 17, Goliath is there. Where's Goliath at? He's down over here in the Philistine area. He's one of the remaining remnants of the giants, of the Anakim. Okay? And here we have David getting ready to be established as king. Saul was established as king, but Saul was a sissy. And Saul wouldn't go fight Goliath, and then David comes along. But what you see is, now again, you have this satanic, supernatural rebellion trying to interrupt God's salvation plan, because God had said, I'm going to bring a king that's going to be in the line of this king, which we know David and David's son. So he sends Goliath over to try to interrupt that. Well then, David takes care of business as a teenager and establishes victory over these satanic spawn. So you see what God is doing. I come to you in the name of Yahweh. You know, you're an uncircumcised Philistine, and you come to me with this and that. Okay, he was the sons of Anak, and then what you see in the rest of the book of Samuel and Kings is David and his men killing all the rest of the giants. It's very fascinating. Okay.
Thanks for watching this. I hope you enjoyed this. Would like to open up that invitation once again, 9 a.m. Sunday mornings at Tahoe Community Church for the lecture series presented by Mondo Gonzalez.